The term systemic injustice is defined as an excessive inequality of wealth and station in a society that comes about as a consequence of the way in which the prevailing social order or establishment is structured. It is a configuration that devalues the contributions made by some of its members and allows the ruling elite to prosper at the expense of others. It inevitably includes a disparity in wealth and social status, and oftentimes results in the violation of basic human rights. In a religious context, systemic injustice is a moral issue because it involves the mistreatment of God's children. A primary example of systemic injustice is slave labor prior to the American Civil War period. The economy of the South depended on a subservient class exploited by the ruling class to produce the wealth necessary for the ruling class to live luxuriously and to enjoy social and political influence. Southern hospitality played favorites, and there was a vast difference between the privileged white Americans and black African slaves who were denied equal social, political, educational, and economic prospects. The recognition that members of societies have a collective obligation to care for each other are important considerations when approaching the Doctrine and Covenants. This book is filled with unease about the misuse of power and wealth. Section 76, verse 6 states the fundamental idea, "For if ye are not equal in earthly things, ye cannot be equal in obtaining heavenly things." In fact, nearly a third of the sections in the Doctrine and Covenants are in some way connected with the building of Zion, a society where all things were held in common and all were on the same standing with God and each other. This classless communitarian society is held up as the ideal and was a chief concern for Joseph and first-generation Mormons. For Mormons in the 21st century, who practice their religion with an eye on personal righteousness, they are less concerned than their forefathers were about bringing about social justice. The Doctrine and Covenants is yet another reminder that personal goodness, although essential, is just half of the equation. The other half acknowledges that salvation also requires that people live in cities and towns and nations that are focused on love of neighbor and thought and care for the least in our society, a place called Zion where people can dwell together in righteousness as one with no poor among them.